Hey, it's great to see you here. Whether you're new to my channel or you've been with me for a while, I want to start by saying welcome. This is a space where we talk honestly about attraction, connection, and creating the kind of chemistry that goes far beyond the surface. Now, today's topic is a little bit cheeky, but incredibly important, because when we talk about physical intimacy, especially with men, there's a dangerous myth out there that men are simple, that they only like to be touched in one or two places, that they're not really sensual, they're just physical. And if you've ever believed that or been with a man who acted like that, I don't blame you. But here's the truth. Most people don't realize men have erotic zones that are deeply sensitive, incredibly overlooked, and secretly craved. And the women who understand this, the ones who touch with intention, who flirt through subtlety, who build that slow burning, skin tingling anticipation, they're unforgettable. Not just because they're sexy, but because they make a man feel seen. Not just desired, but wanted in the most personal, intimate way. So in today's video, I'm going to walk you through 5 erotic zones you're probably ignoring but men love. These aren't the ones you'll find in a basic Googler article. These are the ones that light up a man's nervous system and his heart, because they combine touch with trust, sensuality with surprise, and if you're ready to turn up the heat in a way that's elegant, exciting, and emotionally intelligent, let's dive in. Let's start with one of the most underrated, overlooked, yet incredibly erotic zones on a man's body, the back of his neck. Now you might be thinking, really? That's it? But let me explain why this simple area holds so much power. First of all, the back of a man's neck is a place of vulnerability. It's not a spot people randomly touch. In fact, it's usually protected by posture, by clothing, by habit. So when you go there, especially in an intimate moment, you're sending a very clear message. I see you, I'm close to you, and I know exactly what I'm doing. This is the kind of touch that doesn't just stimulate, it disarms him. It bypasses the loud, obvious, performative kind of affection and taps into something more instinctive, even primal. Think about it. Animals in the wild show submission and trust through the nape of the neck. It's one of the most sensitive and exposed areas of the body, and when touched, it signals, I trust you enough to be close here. So when you brush your fingers along the back of his neck, when you kiss that spot just under his hairline, when you linger there during a hug, what you're really saying without words is, you're safe with me and I know how to get under your skin, in the best way. And what's powerful is that this touch doesn't have to be overtly sexual. In fact, it's more effective when it's not. Picture this. You're standing behind him while he's cooking and you lean in to kiss the back of his neck, or you're cuddled up and your hand starts to gently stroke the base of his neck without saying a word. You'll see the shift almost immediately. His shoulders soften, his breath slows down. That subtle touch wakes up his senses and grounds him in the moment with you, because you're no longer just touching his skin, you're touching his nervous system. Men aren't used to being touched like this. Many of them go through life only being touched in functional, obvious, or expected ways. So when you take your time, when you explore him with curiosity and presence, you're not just giving him physical pleasure, you're giving him something rare, a feeling of being known, of being appreciated beyond the surface. The back of the neck is not just about what you're doing with your hands, it's about the emotion you're communicating through touch. It's about creating moments that stay in his body long after you've pulled away. It's about giving him goosebumps, not just from what you did, but how you did it. Slowly, softly, confidently, with the energy of a woman who knows that true seduction lives in the details. So don't overlook it. Get familiar with it. Play with it, because once you start using this zone with intention, you'll be amazed at how much desire you can spark with just a whisper of your fingers. Now, let's talk about a zone that is almost always overlooked, yet surprisingly sensual, the inner arms, specifically the area between the bicep and the inside of the elbow. Most people, especially when it comes to physical intimacy, focus on the areas that are more obvious: the chest, the back, the thighs. But if you really want to surprise a man, if you want to unlock something that feels fresh, teasing, and deeply erotic without being overtly sexual, this is the place. Why? Because the inner arm is incredibly sensitive. The skin here is soft and delicate, and the nerve endings are closer to the surface. It doesn't get touched very often, so when it does, it sends a clear electric message straight to his nervous system. It's not the kind of touch that screams, "I'm trying to turn you on." It whispers it, and those whispers, they linger. What's so powerful about touching a man's inner arm is that it flies under the radar. It's not expected. It doesn't trigger defense mechanisms or make him feel like he's suddenly being seduced. Instead, it creates this warm wave of pleasure that catches him off guard in the best way. Let me give you a real-world example. You're sitting next to him at dinner. You're both laughing. The energy is light, relaxed. You lean in, and while you're talking, you lightly run your fingers down the inside of his arm. Just a soft, slow stroke. Nothing exaggerated, but that moment can hit harder than 1,000 obvious cues. Or imagine you're lying next to him, and instead of reaching for the usual places, your fingers gently explore the inside of his arm, trailing slowly toward the bend of his elbow. This kind of touch isn't just physical, it's psychological. It communicates that you see him, that you're not just touching the standard male areas because you think you should, but because you're curious, you're connected, you're in the moment. And here's the truth, men crave this kind of attention. Most guys are rarely touched in ways that feel tender, exploratory, and intentional. They often associate physical touch with utility or performance. But when you go for the inner arm, you're not just igniting desire, you're giving him a new experience, one that feels innocent and yet somehow deeply arousing. It also helps that this move feels so natural. It's flirtation disguised as affection. You can do it while sitting on the couch, during a conversation, or even in public without it raising any eyebrows. But the effect it has on him, that's something he won't forget. So next time you're close, let your hand wander somewhere unexpected. Let it drift along his inner arm and watch how his body reacts. Because the places that don't get attention, when you finally touch them with presence and intention, they speak volumes, and you become unforgettable in the process. Let's talk about a place you probably haven't paid much attention to, but once you do, you'll never forget the reaction it gets behind his ears. Now, I know this might sound like an odd one. After all, when we think about turning a man on or connecting with him physically, the ears don't exactly top the list. But what if I told you that this small, delicate area just behind the ear, along the curve where his jawline starts, holds a ridiculous amount of erotic potential? Here's the thing, behind the ears is one of those places where the skin is thin, the nerve endings are sensitive, and the touch is rare. And that's exactly what makes it so powerful. Most men go through their entire day never being touched there. Not accidentally, not intentionally. It's not a place people casually make contact with. So when you do, it creates a jolt of surprise. And that's where the magic begins. Imagine this. You're close to him, maybe whispering something playful, maybe mid-cuddle, maybe even in the middle of a goodbye hug. You lean in, and your lips gently graze the skin just behind his ear. You might not even kiss him directly, just breathe there or let your nose nuzzle that space. That kind of touch, that closeness sends a wave through him. It's electric. Why? Because it feels intimate and because it's not a place people go unless there's a real connection. It's also deeply primal. The neck, the ears, these areas are connected to instinct. In moments of closeness, they signal vulnerability, arousal, trust. When you go behind his ear with intention, not rushing, not trying to be overtly sexual, just soft and slow, you awaken his senses in a way that feels incredibly personal. It's not just about turning him on, it's about pulling him in. And here's a little secret. If you combine that with a whisper, something teasing, something sincere, or even something slightly suggestive, You're creating a multi-sensory experience. He hears your voice. He feels your breath. He senses the nearness of your lips. It's touch without touching, seduction without saying, I'm trying to seduce you. What's more, it works because it's unexpected. Most women don't go there. They focus on his chest, his face, his lips. But when you go behind his ear, you're saying something else entirely. You're saying, I pay attention to the details. I take my time. I know what other people miss, and I don't overlook it. That kind of attention is rare, and rare is sexy. So next time you're close to him, whether it's in bed, on the couch, or even standing at the door as he's leaving, don't forget that space behind his ear. Linger there for just a moment. A gentle brush of your lips, a slow whisper, a soft graze with your fingertip. That moment might last a second, but the way it makes him feel, that'll stay with him long after. Now, let's talk about a place you might not even think of when it comes to intimacy, yet it holds an almost magnetic kind of power over a man's body: his lower back. This is one of those zones that's so often ignored. It's not traditionally erotic. It's not a place you see highlighted in romance scenes or talked about in magazines, but that's exactly why it's such a hidden gem. Because when you touch a man's lower back, especially with intention, especially in a moment of connection, you do more than just get his attention. You anchor him to you. The lower back is this bridge between his upper body and his most private space. It's a transition zone. Not quite public, not quite private, which makes it ripe for subtle, powerful moments of intimacy. It's where you can hint at something more without diving straight into overt sexual energy. And in that hint lies the real seduction. Think about it. Have you ever guided a man through a doorway by placing your hand gently on the small of his back? Or hugged him from behind and let your hands rest low just above his waistband? Or even run your fingertips there as you're walking past him in the kitchen without saying a word? His gestures might seem small, even forgettable, but to a man who's paying attention, they're everything. Why? Because that part of his body is rarely touched. It's typically covered up. It's rarely given affection. And when it is touched, it's often for utilitarian reasons. A pat, a nudge, a stretch. But when you make it a moment of intimacy, when your hand lingers there with purpose, you create a kind of tension, one that says, I know exactly what I'm doing. There's also a deeper psychological element at play. The lower back, especially when touched from behind, communicates a soft kind of dominance. Not aggressive, not overbearing, but confident. It says, I can lead too. I can take the wheel for a moment. And men love that energy when a woman knows how to lead gently, how to touch him like she knows the effect she's having without needing to announce it. This kind of touch is best when it's casual, not performative, just natural, like a hand slipping under his shirt while you're cuddled up, or tracing circles on his lower back as he's talking to you. It's slow, it's warm. It doesn't ask for anything, and that's what makes it so irresistible. Because in a world where men are constantly expected to be the ones who initiate, who perform, who pursue, being touched in this way, with quiet confidence, with affection that feels safe and sexy all at once, is kind of intimacy they don't even know they need until they feel it. So don't underestimate his lower back. Touch it, hold it, tease it. And watch how his body reacts, not just with arousal, but with trust. That's how you create real chemistry, the kind that lingers. Let's talk about one of the most sensual, most expressive, and most ignored parts of a man's body, his hands and fingers. Now, I know you might be thinking, but everyone touches hands, that's nothing new. But I'm not talking about a quick handshake or an occasional squeeze. I'm talking about the intimacy that happens when you truly pay attention to a man's hands. Because the truth is, how you interact with his hands says everything about how present, confident, and attuned you are to him. Men use their hands to do, to build, to work, to fix, to protect. So when you slow down and treat his hands not as tools but as a place of connection, something incredible happens. You shift the energy. You take him out of performance mode and drop him into feeling mode. Suddenly, the part of him that's used to action is now receiving attention. And that attention, that's what makes it feel erotic. There's something deeply sensual about the act of holding a man's hand and then doing just a little more. Maybe it's slowly running your thumb over the top of his hand while you're talking. Maybe it's tracing your fingertip along the lines of his palm when you're lying in bed. Or better yet, gently taking his fingers and massaging them one by one with focus, like they deserve your full attention. It's not just touch, it's intimacy in slow motion. And believe me, it wakes something up in him. What most women don't realize is that men feel through their hands just as much as they give through them. When you kiss his fingertips or intertwine your fingers and linger, when you slide your own fingers between his and look at him like there's nowhere else you'd rather be, that melts him. And it's not just about turning him on, though yes, that can absolutely happen too. It's about making him feel chosen, seen, like you're fascinated not by what he does with his hands, but by the fact that they're his. And here's what makes this even more powerful. It can happen anywhere. You can sit across from him in a restaurant, reach out and just gently stroke the back of his hand while looking into his eyes. That tiny moment of focus can make his pulse race, not because you're being provocative, but because you're giving attention to the part of him no one else thinks to honor. Seduction doesn't have to be loud. Sometimes it's just giving quiet, deliberate attention to the places on him that are used to being ignored. His hands and fingers are not just extensions of him. They are a roadmap to closeness. And when you touch them with intention, with curiosity, and with the energy of I want to learn you, you do something very few women ever do. You make him feel desired in a way that's gentle, slow burning, and unforgettable. And that's a power you don't even have to speak to use. Just reach out and let your hands do the talking. So there you have it, 5 places on his body that are quietly calling for your attention. They're not the ones you see in movies or hear about in songs, but they're powerful. And not because they're overtly sexual, but because they're intimate, they're unexpected. And most importantly, they show that you're not just going through the motions, you're paying attention to the man behind the desire, because that's what real chemistry is built on. It's not about doing what everyone else is doing. It's about noticing what others overlook. When you explore these hidden zones, his inner arms, behind his ears, his lower back, his hands, even the way you whisper to the side of his neck, you tell him, I see you. And that message is far more seductive than any scripted move. Here's your challenge. Don't rush. Take your time. The next time you're with him, let yourself be curious. Try touching him in one of these places with softness, with intention, and without expectation. Watch how his body responds. Watch how his energy shifts. That's your power. And if you want to make a man crave you, remember you, and feel safe being vulnerable with you, these are the moves that matter most. Because when a man feels that kind of connection, he doesn't just desire you, he cherishes you. If you found this eye-opening, or if you're ready to explore deeper, more magnetic connection with a man, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and drop a comment below. Tell me, which of these 5 zones are you most curious to try out first? And remember, the sexiest thing you can bring to any moment isn't a perfect move, it's your presence. Be curious, be bold, and most of all, be you. I'll see you in the next one.